Okay, this is 100, 120 class. This is Q voice, and this is a coroner's inquest. So coroners are appointed by the county, and their investigations into or suspicious deaths are done differently in each county. Sometimes they convene a jury, sometimes it's up to the coroner to make that decision. This is a really old transcript, 94, and this took place in San Francisco, and the coroner is taking testimony in order to rule someone's, cause of death. Yikes, my brain's not working today. Okay, so we're going to start with a question, and I'll let you be questioned. This is, it is counted. I'll be good. We're going to read this. We're going to read this in 12s or 13s, right around there. Okay. There's some medical stuff in here. We'll definitely slow it down to 13s when we get to that. And we're going to go for like 10 minutes, okay? So, let me see what 100 is. 15s. 12s is going to be too fast, I think. 13s and 14s. Okay. Okay. Here we go. You're the coroner. On the record.
Mr. Burris, why don't you step up and be sworn, please? If you would take the witness stand for me over here, I am going to assume that you don't know anything about an inquest and tell you just a little bit about the process. You are in a California courtroom testifying under oath. The purpose of this inquest is the death of Ronald Riley. The issue is whether his death is a suicide or due to natural causes. The law requires that the medical examiner determine 3 things. One of them is the cause of death. The other is the circumstances surrounding it. And the third thing that we are involved in today is the suicide, accident, or homicide. That is what the issue is here today. Since you are testifying under oath in a courtroom, you want to listen very carefully to the questions. Don't guess. Answer truthfully and to the point. If you don't understand a question, ask that it be repeated. Also, keep in mind that the inquest is not a court of law. It's an inquiry into a death. Nobody is being accused of a crime. You are not on trial. We are interested in what happened to Mr. Riley.
You want assisting details in helping figure out.
Yes.
Okay.
First, would you state your name and home address for the record?
My full name?
Yes.
Brian Keith Elliott Michael Burris III. My address is 970 Gary, apartment number 47, San Francisco, California, 94109.
You knew Ronald Riley?
Yes.
For about how long had you known Mr. Riley?
A little over almost 14 years.
14 years. All right. You knew that Mr. Riley died in the city on or about July 4th?
Correct.
Did you know that Mr. Riley had a disease or an illness?
Yes, I did.
And is it my understanding that you were roommates or you lived together?
I was his lover.
For about how long?
11 and a half years. Almost 12 years. 12 years total.
How long has Mr. Riley been ill?
Mr. Riley was diagnosed with AIDS, full-blown, almost 5.5 years ago.
He has been treated, I understand, at Ward 86 at San Francisco General Hospital.
That's correct.
Among other places? Mr. Riley apparently has had a lot of problems with his disease, but I am curious about a couple things. First of all, are you aware of any abuse of street drugs or illegal agents for Mr. Riley?
An occasional bit of methamphetamine is the only one I was ever aware of. He didn't use alcohol except for an occasional beer, not even a glass of wine with dinner. That has been quite a while ago, to my knowledge.
Okay. The illness that he has or had, was that getting progressively worse?
Yes. Within the last month, he got much worse. He started wasting syndrome. He started becoming easily confused. He was getting dementiated and forgetful, clumsy. He fell often. I had to watch him 24 hours a day, which I did.
Was there ever any question of injury? Did he fall or cause injury to himself?
About 2 weeks before he passed away, he was in the bathroom and he stood up too fast, and the toilet and the bathtub are very close together. He turned this way and fell into the bathtub. He had a bed sore spot on his rear end that had gotten, started to deteriorate a little bit, but he bruised that severely. And I did have to look after that pretty closely because it got pretty bad toward the end.
I take it there was no change in his level of mental activity and so forth?
Oh no, he was sharp as a tack.
What kind of medications was he taking?
Oh my, that list is like,
Quite large.
it's an extensive list.
How about specifically the drugs oxycodone or amitriptyline? Amitriptyline most typically would be known as Elavil.
Nortriptyline?
It's generally metabolite, although it's available.
Right.
The reason for the concern is he has those two drugs in therapeutic or higher than therapeutic levels,
Which two drugs?
oxycodone and nortriptyline,
Oxycodone, which would be Percocet.
Percocet. Nortriptyline can be sold under several different trade names.
I know at the end, after speaking to his doctor on the phone, Walter Howard at Ward 86, and Mr. Riley was starting to have a great deal of pain. He just had a transfusion. Medications were delivered by a volunteer through the service. These were left on a door handle. Mr. Riley never got the medications. He went through a great deal of pain for several days, and his situation got much worse after that. And when I got the medications and called his doctor as far as administration of them and what levels, because he was in a great deal of pain. I mean, he suffered from neuropathy. Basically, a breeze couldn't blow that he wouldn't feel it. I asked his doctor what to give him. Then I also, at that time, told him I could tell Mr. Riley was not probably going to make it through the next couple of days. it was getting to become very obvious.
Okay.
And he had suggested that we get PO morphine, which is oral morphine. When Mr. Riley passed away, the person delivering it got there after he passed away.
So the Roxanol is not something Mr. Riley had ever gotten?
No, the bottle and the container were given to the person who came to the home. The paper hadn't even been torn from the pharmacy yet.
That was the first prescription for Roxanol he had gotten?
Yes.
You mentioned he was in quite a bit of pain. This was generalized or systemic type pain?
He was very achy. I mean, he couldn't even hold his head up at the last, for the last 9 hours. I had to put his head on my shoulder so he could talk. He couldn't sit up. He couldn't swallow water, couldn't do anything. He started choking. It got to be very uncomfortable for him.
I take it that his choice was to be at home rather than...
Absolutely.
I take it from your conversation, you have some medical knowledge or training?
After taking care of someone, yes. And I worked for in-home support services as a nursing attendant for Mr. Riley for the last 5.5 years as well. I was with him through all his procedures, and everything that I could learn, become knowledgeable on, I did.
Was Mr. Riley running a fever?
He was spiking fevers he would hit 101 up to the highest one he had ever hit, which was 103 the last couple of days.
Would these effervesce on their own, or did you do something for them?
Most of the time, I would either apply cold compresses, rubbing alcohol, a couple of times ice under the arms, and that seemed to work, or aspirin. I mean, his fevers would come down pretty easily. They wouldn't hold for very long at all.
Were there any respiratory problems when he was having fevers?
Oh, yes. But he had PCP pneumonia 9 times. Basically, he had cotton candy for lung tissue. He had no lung tissue at all. It was amazing he could breathe for as long as he did. Okay. Yep. This is now going to be at 120 intense.
For the record, where does he live?
He lives in Sugar Mill.
Sugar Mill. What's that?
It's a little area with houses.
What road is it off of?
It's a subdivision. I think the street that he lives on is Sugar Mill, but they got other street names over there.
Whose car were you driving?
I was driving my car.
Did you have any insurance on that car?
No, sir.
What were the weather conditions like on the day of the accident?
It was dry.
Was it clear, or had it been raining or foggy or anything?
No, it was clear and dry.
Where did this accident happen? What road were you driving on?
I was on St. Bernard Highway.
I would like to have you draw a diagram. What I would like to do is for you to draw St. Bernard, and could you also draw in Canal Street where it comes in, And I want you to put a neutral ground, draw the number of lanes, and make it big. How many lanes are there on St. Bernard in each direction?
It was one lane.
In each direction?
Yes. It is one lane going this way.
Why don't you put an arrow going this direction to show? And why don't you put an arrow down here?
Okay.
Why don't you draw St. Bernard Highway?
Okay.
Is that St. Bernard Highway?
Yes, it is.
Why don't you write that so if anyone is looking at this diagram, they will know? And put up here Canal Street.
Okay.
Now, before you write anything, why don't you tell me in your own words how the accident happened?
I was going down St. Bernard Highway. They had cars parked on the side of the road because they have a church right here. I was coming down St. Bernard Highway and it was kind of dark.
Which direction would that be?
I was going this way.
Where would that be heading towards?
Toward my friend's house.
Okay, don't write anything in yet until I ask you. Okay, continue on.
I was coming down St. Bernard Highway and it was black. She had a dark green car. She pulled out and when I seen her, I just like slammed my brakes on and I hit her in the front between the front fender and the front door.
Where was her vehicle when you first saw it? Why don't you draw a box?
When I first saw it,
Draw it when you first saw it. Draw the angle of it and whether it was in the lane or that lane or at an angle.
she was about like that.
Why don't you draw your vehicle in there where you were in relation?
I was about right here.
Was she all in this lane or was her car as drawn with a tiny bit over in your lane?
I think her front end, the corner part, was already in my lane.
Her right front?
Yeah, her right front.
What was the distance between the front of your vehicle and the right front of her vehicle as shown?
About 5-8 feet.
You were 5 to 8 feet away when you first saw her. Is that right?
That is right.
What did you do?
I slammed my brakes on.
Why don't you show me the position of her car? That is what I'm going to ask you before you start drawing. Show me where her car was and the angle of it, and also your car and the angle of it at the time of impact.
When I hit her,
If you know what I'm talking about,
the location for the second part,
yes, this is when you first saw her. What I want to know is, was this car up here or down here? Just for example, I'm not suggesting any alternative. I'll give you multiple ones. Did that impact occur right here, or did it occur here, or did it occur down here?
it was even with the street.
Why don't you draw another box for her car, the Garcia car, how it was and where you were? So show me where the impact occurred. Put G2 for that. You can draw another box on top of the other one. And why don't you draw your vehicle?
Do you want me to label that D2? Okay, put something different. Did we just do this?
I didn't remember the Garcia vehicle, but
Yeah, kind of hard. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do some for feedback. And let's read this now in 13. So I slow it down. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit for feedback.
for the record. And you traveled the 5 to 8 feet before impact. Is that right? That was the distance you said you were initially away when you first saw her?
Yes,
So the distance from the front of your car at D1 to the front of your car at D2 would be how far? A car length or less?
5 to 8 feet.
How far did your car move after impact?
A couple more feet. I don't know exactly.
2 to 4?
Probably another 5 feet.
You believe it was around 5 feet?
Yes,
Did the Garcia car move any after impact?
yes, she went into the other lane and hit another car. But I think when she hit that other car, the back of her car hit the back of my car.
Okay. After impact, the Garcia car turned and hit another car?
Yes, she was trying to swerve. I guess she was trying to swerve for me to pass or something like that. But it was already too late. I hit her.
Where was this car that she turned around and hit?
It was coming the opposite way.
Why don't you draw in the vehicle and put an X in it where the vehicle was that the Garcia vehicle hit after impact with your vehicle?
The vehicle was over here when she hit her.
Why don't you draw and put an X in that?
Okay.
This is the vehicle that Garcia hit after you made contact with her.
After she hit them. Okay, I'm gonna do that for readback now. Okay, this is gonna be a little bit faster now. You should find lots of phrasing in here. Accident case on the record.
For the record, state your name.
Raymond Williams,
Where do you live, sir?
City of Los Angeles,
How long have you lived in that city?
approximately 15 years.
Where did you live before that time?
San Diego,
What is your business?
I am an automobile salesman.
By whom are you employed?
By the plaintiff,
Where is his principal place of business?
San Francisco.
Are you acquainted with the defendant in this action?
Yes, sir, I am.
And you have been subpoenaed to come to court?
No, sir.
Have you been called as a witness in behalf of the plaintiff?
Yes, sir, I have.
How old are you at the present time?
I am 40 years of age.
Do you remember the day this accident happened?
Yes, sir, I remember the date very well.
What kind of a car was the defendant operating?
A Ford sedan.
On the day of the accident, where were you seated in the truck?
On the left-hand side.
Does that truck have a left-hand drive?
Yes, sir.
Where did the accident happen?
On the southwest corner of Harbor and 6th Street.
I beg your pardon. Where did you say the accident took place?
On the southwest corner.
Did you ever say that the accident occurred on the northwest corner?
Absolutely not.
Are you sure about that?
Absolutely sure. I did not say anything like that.
In which direction were you going?
In a southerly direction.
Have you any idea how wide Harbor is at the scene of the accident, as near as you can judge?
Taking into consideration that it is a 2-lane road, I should judge it is about 30 feet wide.
As a matter of fact, it is 25 feet wide.
Something like that.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's right.
Do you know whether or not there are railroad tracks at that point?
As near as I can remember, there are.
About how far away from the corner were you when you first saw the Ford sedan?
I should judge about 200 feet.
At that time, can you tell us how far away from the corner the Ford car was?
It was about the middle of the block.
How wide is that truck, sir?
I beg your pardon?
About how wide is your truck?
About 6 feet wide,
How high is it?
something like 9 feet high.
Was anyone else in the truck with you at the time of the accident?
No, sir, no one else.
Have you ever driven over that highway before the accident?
I have often driven by there, very often,
How often did you pass that corner?
many times during the month.
Do you recollect whether or not there was a crowd in that neighborhood when the accident happened?
As near as I can remember, there were 3 or 4 people.
To the best of your recollection, was it light or dark at that time and place?
It was daytime.
Pardon me. About how many people did you say there were on the corner?
About 4 or 5
On what part of the street were you driving?
on the right-hand side.
Was someone else with the driver in the other car?
I don't remember whether he had any passengers, sir.
By the way, you were rather anxious to get home on that day. Is that right?
Of course.
Did you see any skid marks on the freeway after the accident?
No, sir.
Tell the court and jury in your own words how the accident happened, bearing in mind that you were going north and the Ford car was going west.
I couldn't tell you in a few words. I was on the northbound side, and I am inclined to think that the Ford car was going at a very fast rate of speed. As soon as I got past the center of the street, he hit the car in the front wheel by reason of the fact that I couldn't get out of the way.
What do you mean by very fast rate of speed?
Fast.
For the purpose of this record, will you be good enough to give us your best estimate of the speed?
As far as I remember, he was going 30 miles an hour.
To the best of your knowledge, that was his speed?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember whether or not he was on the right-hand side of the highway or the left-hand side of the highway?
On the left.
What part of his car came in contact with your truck?
His right front wheel.
At what rate of speed were you traveling prior to the time of the accident?
At the rate of about 25 miles an hour.
How fast did I understand you to say the Ford sedan was going when you first saw him?
About 40 miles per hour when I first saw him.
Were you thrown from the truck?
That's correct.
Were you seriously injured?
Yes, sir, I certainly was.
Could you say whether or not Mrs. Raymond was hurt very badly?
I couldn't say that. I helped to pick her up and take her to the hospital.
Do you say, however, that Mr. Raymond was injured?
I don't believe so, sir.
He was taken to the hospital, wasn't he?
I believe he was.
What was done for him at the hospital?
They took some x-ray pictures of his neck.
What time was it when the ambulance arrived, if you know?
About 5 minutes after the accident.
Weren't you under the influence of alcohol when you were driving that day?
I've never been intoxicated.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Didn't the police officer take you to the police station before you were taken to the hospital?
No, sir. I didn't go to the police station with the officer.
I understood you to say, among some other things, that your truck stopped in the middle of the street. Is that so?
That is right.
There was no other car or truck on that corner at that time, was there?
Yes, sir. There were some cars up the street.
Did you have any conversation with anybody at any time since the accident happened?
No, sir, I have not.
Did you have occasion to refresh your memory by talking this matter over with your attorney since the accident occurred?
No, sir.
Did you give your name to the police officer?
Yes, sir. Quite a bit later.
And did you find out the name of the driver of the sedan?
Yes, sir, I did. But it was a little while after the accident happened.
When your truck came to a stop and you stopped out and saw the young lady on the curb, where did you go?
I went over to pick her up.
I ask you whether you are able to state that young lady was on the right side or on the left as you stepped out of the car.
On the right side, in the street.
In your opinion, you were on the right-hand side of the street throughout this incident?
Yes, sir.
You were never on the other side of the street?
Absolutely not.
Wasn't it absolutely necessary for you to turn away to avoid this incident?
I couldn't turn away. Okay, I think we're going to do, what's your EB 360 assignment for this week? What is this? This is week 7. It's a 2 voice. Great, we're going to do that. So that'll help you with that lesson. It's warm in here sometimes.
It
doesn't
does, yeah.
Uh-huh. Makes me very sleepy. Okay. Let me give you a couple of preview words here that I see on here right away. I don't know if I'm going to get them all. Merrillville, Merrillville. Spartan Department Store. Wiseway Super Food Center. Or just Wiseway Food Center. Those look to be about the only proper nouns that I can see. So this is counted in 20s. So we're going to read it once again in, how does that last one? Yeah. Let's go between 9s and 10s. No faster than 9s. Okay, here we go.
For the record, when you were stocking shelves at the Wiseway Super Food Center in Merrillville, was it ever your duty to repair or replace the floor tile?
No.
Was it ever your job duty to repair or replace the insulation that you told me about that would have been on the heating system?
No, not to replace it.
Okay. Were you ever present at a time when the floor tile was being repaired at the grocery store?
I can't recall telling you the truth.
Were you ever present at the Wiseway Food Center when the insulation on the heating was being replaced?
I can't recall that either.
Would you know the brand name or manufacturer of the tile that would have been present at the Wiseway Food Center?
No.
Would you know the brand name or manufacturer of the insulation at the Wiseway Food Center?
No.
At Spartan Department Store, do you believe you would have been exposed to any asbestos?
Other than just what we talked about with the Wiseway store, no. It would be pretty much repetitious with that.
What were your job duties at the Spartan store?
Basically the same thing, stocking shelves.
You believe that the Spartan store would have had asbestos floor tile?
Yes,
You think there would have been some asbestos on the pipes for the heating system at Spartan?
yes.
At Spartan stores, was it your job duty to repair or replace the floor tile and or the insulation?
No,
Were you ever present when the floor tile or the insulation was repaired at Spartan stores?
I can't recall that either.
Do you know the brand name or manufacturer of the floor tile at Spartan?
No, I can't recall that.
Do you know the brand name or manufacturer of the insulation at Spartan?
I can't recall that either. No,
Do you remember ever seeing any boxes of either of those products in a storage room?
I can't recall seeing any. No,
Both of these jobs were while you were in high school.
yeah.
Were these year-round jobs, summer jobs?
No, I don't work that many hours on either job, actually. You know, it wasn't like a 40-hour-a-week job.
So would you have worked both jobs at the same time? One first, one second?
No, one at a time.
Which one was first?
Let me think, let me recall. Best of my knowledge that I can recall, I believe I worked at Wiseway first. Then I worked at Spartan.
Is each one for 2 years? One for 1 year? One for 2 years? Can you approximate it for me?
The hours are on my Social Security list on there, but I can't recall the exact time periods.
Okay. Once you graduated high school, you no longer worked at either of those sites.
No,
Is that correct?
yes,
The Spartan store that you worked at, was that also in Gary?
yes, it was. But I actually don't remember the address on that. I am sure that that's there.
In your answers to interrogatories, it says you worked at the Spartan department store, 111 8th Avenue in New York.
New York? No, I didn't go that far. I didn't commute that far. I guarantee you.
I didn't think so. Why don't we do this?
I just can't recall the location.
Before I get to something new, let me show you what we've marked as exhibit number 1, which is the notice for today's deposition. Take a second to look at that. Let me know when you're done.
Okay,
Okay. Have you ever seen that document prior to today?
yes,
In the document, it requests that you bring today's deposition, Social Security work history printout, any of your own employment records or logs that you may have kept, calendars, diaries, etc. Did you bring those documents with you today?
I believe that they have them with them.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Monroe. What did you do today to prepare for your deposition?
What did I do today?
Yes, if anything.
Nothing.
Your attorney has handed me some photographs of some pictures that he has represented to me that you are familiar with. When did you first see those pictures?
On the job sites.
That's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you when you saw the products. I asked you when you saw the pictures. When did you see the pictures themselves?
When Linda came over and we were talking,
Do you remember when that was?
I don't remember the dates. I don't recall that date.
1998, 1999?
1999.
Do you remember if it was winter, spring, or summer?
It was summer.
My understanding is that those pictures are part of a large 3-ring binder that have lots of pictures in them. Is that how you remember them?
Yes.
Do you remember how long it took you to review the binder or binders?
Just a few minutes.
I take it you went through the binder and indicated one way or another which pictures were familiar to you.
Yes.
With respect to any of those pictures that are in front of you now, would you be able to tell me a specific job site that you remember seeing that specific product?
It's real difficult, being that I have been in the trade for 33 years, and I have a lot of the jobs, like the list that we have given you, is just a small percentage of jobs that I've actually been on. Okay, we're going to start your takes. I need to let you go a couple minutes early today because I have a meeting. Okay. So I'm going to end the practice recording.